Hello there and welcome to this vlog of November 2022, and today's video is on why I feel like 2023 will be the year of BattleTech. Just so you're aware, I was planning on another video today, but I completely ran out of time to do the research on it because it was my 40th birthday this week. So I've been away doing birthday things. So anyway, it's quite late at night now, and I was like, well, I'll do a video this week. I didn't really know what to do until I was just like perusing some like random hobby news, and something really caught my eye, which I think it's definitely not gone under the radar. I've seen a lot of people talking about this. There are multiple like YouTubers discussing it, and I've seen it on social media. But I'm going to look at it almost like in a positive light for BattleTech as opposed to the kind of negative, which it is for the community that it really affects. As you will probably have guessed, this is about Games Workshop, given that they are so big in the sphere and anything that they do ripples throughout the hobby. Well, Games Workshop, I think today or over the last couple of days, I've been away, so I don't know exactly when it was announced, but I did see that they have announced an increase of cost to retailers. That's important, but an increase in price of 5.8%, and that's really significant. I don't no heat to Games Workshop here. I mean, that's their choice. We are going through a problem time at the moment with the economy, so a lot of companies are having to do like things like this and make tough decisions. But what's really interesting about this is how that increase is being put on the retailers and not the end user, the customer, or like you and I. And again, I'm not going to debate the the pros and cons from that in terms of Games Workshop or the wider like Games Workshop hobby within the kind of domain of retail. It goes without saying that that will have a huge impact on retailers, because they already offer, or the independent stores certainly offer, a lot of like percentage discounts on Games Workshop products. That's now going to get really hit. So why therefore is that very good for BattleTech, and not just BattleTech but other indie games as well. So I'm going to segue into the positive really now, as opposed to kind of dwelling too much on what Games Workshop are doing. But I think over the last like few weeks, I've seen this like huge increase in BattleTech demand in the UK across like the independent game stores. I really do keep up to this as well. Like at least like once a week I check maybe like 10 to 15 independent game stores just to see how BattleTech is doing. We're lucky really, because we get like trackers now on websites, so it will say things on there, and you'll know this if you buy from like independent retailers. It will say like 4 of these products left or something along that lines. And over the last few weeks I've noticed that the BattleTech stuff is really starting to kind of fly off the shelves. Now we're in the lead up to Christmas, and no doubt that's got a huge bearing on this. People buying gifts or treating themselves for Christmas or whatever else. So that's certainly why, but that's still a good sign, because when we're at peak retail season, the BattleTech product is really starting to fly. Now, if you couple that with what Games Workshop have just done, we're going to be in a situation here where the vast majority of these like independent retail stores are now going to be looking for alternative options in terms of what they're putting on their shelves. Because if you think about it from their perspective, if Games Workshop have just passed on that 5.8% to them specifically, well, the first thing that's going to impact on is the percentage discount that they can give the consumer. So that might go down, maybe from like the customary 15-20%, which most stores will do. That may very quickly go down to 5-10%. They'll probably then inevitably see a lowering of demand for Games Workshop products. I think, and I'm not talking about bad press or anything like that, because to be honest with you, with Games Workshop, because they're so big and they're such an easy target, a lot of people speak a lot of nonsense about them. I mean, you know, like, oh, they're going to be failing, or this is the last year that Games Workshop will be able to do things. No, no, I'm sorry. Like, Games Workshop are huge. They're a very, very recognisable brand, and they're very, very powerful. So them putting their prices up and basically selling this, like, you know, it's a unique product. It's quite an exclusive luxury product, so to speak. But by them not hitting the consumer, and I think the consumer would probably continue to pay for this because they've got a very, very dedicated fan base. But rather than hit the consumer, they've hit the retailer, and that means then that the retailer is going to have to start thinking about exactly what they are stocking. Because if those percentage increments come down on Games Workshop sales, something else is going to have to fill that void. Now, there are plenty of alternatives to Games Workshop. Obviously, none of them have anything like the scope of operations or the size of Games Workshop. But I would actually consider BattleTech after what's happened over the last couple of years, but particularly over this, what I can see I mean, I'm only talking about the UK market here, but there's clearly a big bump on BattleTech products. You know, like, it will go in for pre-order and it will sell out very quickly. Like, you have to be fast to get in at good hobby stores with, like, you know, good discounts to get the products. Now, in my mind, therefore, you're talking about this, like a, I don't know, what do you call it, like the reverse of a perfect storm for a, you know, perfect tranquility weather for BattleTech next year. Because Games Workshop have decided to do this just before Christmas, which is going to upset a lot of retailers. And then we're going to have all the buzz going into, you know, January, February, March next year with the new Kickstarter. So a lot of, like, well, I believe that retailers will be able to sign up for that. They certainly did that in the other wave Kickstarters. Might be different this time, but previously you could, as a retailer, opt into the Kickstarter and then get, you know, cheaper product because of that you could then put on the shelf. And I think now that BattleTech has got a really, like, strong reputation within the retail field in regards of selling out quite quickly, I think this might be the moment, like, over the next, you know, 6 to 12 months, where BattleTech starts to really, like, get into a more prominent, powerful position as a wider, like, brand within the hobby. And I'm not talking about a recognizable brand, because BattleTech's very, very famous. It's one of the oldest, like, hobby IPs out there, alongside, you know, the Games Workshop brand and Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. What I'm talking about, though, is its success from a pure, like, retail perspective, because what usually happens in retail, especially like hobby retail, from as far as my understanding goes, and I'm not an expert, but, you know, I'm a hobbyist of the retail hobby, really, if you want to put it that way. What will happen is, like, BattleTech will have a what you call, like, a bad reputation with retailers. You know, like, if you go back like 3 years, BattleTech always was, like, sold in, like, separate little packages. So, you know, you could just buy, like, one mech. So they were in those little, like, plastic blister, not even blister packs. I mean, they were just sold in, like, baggies. Now, that was really bad for big retail outlets, because you just cannot expect them to be able to get them on shelves. Like, literally, you can't put them on there. I know then that Catalyst did a lot of research on this before they started this whole new, like, plastic project that we've had over the last, like, 3 or 4 years. They did a lot of research on the size of boxes that retailers wanted, what the retailers actually needed, and then to keep things retail friendly, so that you could go to them and say, look, we've got a recognizable brand, we know we've got a bad reputation, but we are going to fix that. Now, the proof is really now in the pudding in terms of BattleTech sells. BattleTech's easy to go to retail, and Catalyst Games Labs are not just putting, you know, 5.8 retail hikes onto their, what is effectively customers. You know, the independent retail stores are their customers to many extents. So it's not just, we are customers as well, but we're just individuals. You know, but Catalyst will be selling these things to gaming stores as well, who then sell them to us. So it's just basically a big, like, retail chain. So I find it very interesting, really, that Games Workshop have, first of all, decided to do this, because it's going to be it will be a very controversial decision. I think a lot of like gaming stores, and I feel very bad for them to be honest, because I think a lot of them will now be really having to make some tough choices on what they do. And it's not really about like passing an expense onto the consumer, but in a way, like I suppose it's Games Workshop's. Maybe it's. I don't mean this is some kind of conspiracy theory thing. It's just the way it is. But if you buy something from Games Workshop, it will always be 15 to 20% more than if you buy it from an independent hobbyist. So are they passing on that cost to the independent so that they have to bring their their prices like up to Games Workshop prices, and then Games Workshop can theoretically sell more products from their own store? I don't. It's not that simple, and I think Games Workshop would be pretty silly to do that just in terms of the yield that they sell, because the yield will probably go down now. But some things happen there where they have costed it and done research on it, and they've decided that this is the best approach. I think for retailers though, what that will mean is that they won't have that boon of being able to always say, well, we are cheaper than Games Workshop, so come to us, we're just as efficient, it's the same product, you just get 20% off with us. Now that's going to go down considerably, and I think for the for people in the market as well looking for those alternatives, well, at most hobby stores, things like BattleTech will still have that general 20% off as well, and you're not going to well, as far as I'm aware, like Catalyst have never put the prices up of the force packs that they've put out. Usually always works out, if you buy the force packs, it's about between $5 and $7 for a mech, depending on what you're buying. Like obviously like an assault mech is going to cost more than a light mech because it's basically double the size, so therefore double the the plastic or the material. So it's quite a complex issue, I suppose, on how this is all costed. But if Catalyst are seen as a more friendly retail option, easy to shelve, good brand, reputable now, like they've just had a really prolonged successful like Kickstarter campaign, and they're going into another one, I think Games Workshop are going to find that like this is going to have an impact of them. And it's not just BattleTech either. I mean, you've got plenty of other like independent gaming studios out there, and I'm sure will be looking to take advantage of this. And I think in a way like BattleTech really is I suppose the best place to do it, because we've just had such like a strong like 4 or 5 years really in terms of everything, in terms of like the buzz around BattleTech, the like even things like MechWarrior 5, which I know I was playing MechWarrior 5 a couple of weeks ago. I basically not played it for ages, and I've come back to it when it's got lots of DLC, and it's like they fixed so much of it. It actually is like a really good game now. I know it was not seen as very good when it came out, but it has improved immeasurably to a point where I don't think we're going to need a MechWarrior 6. I think they just have to do another expansion for the clan invasion, and they can basically just call that the definitive like mech shooty game. We've also had things like obviously the Harebrained Schemes game as well, which was like really, really successful, did very, very well. So you've got the buzz, you've got the retail positive aspects, you've got competition firms doing like interesting price hikes, and then you've got this next Kickstarter wave, which is going to be very, very interesting to see how that ends up being, because obviously, ends up being a success or not really, because we are obviously going into this like recession, which I think is. I think technically in the UK we are now in recession if you kind of go by the quarterly stats that come out. But I think next year is going to be very, very tough. So I don't know if like the Kickstarter will be as successful as it would have been if it would have been done this time last year, for instance, when the economy was, ironically, because obviously we were in like the post-COVID-19 situation, but it's like a lot of people had money and we didn't have obviously like the things like the war in Ukraine, which has had huge like impacts on supply side, and caused all manner of like economic problems throughout the world because of things like agriculture getting really hit and food prices going up because of not just that, there are many other factors as well, but you know, we're just we're going into a tough period now. So I don't know where we're going to be necessarily in March. You know, like if mortgage rates go to what percentage rate we think they're going to get, I think they're just under 6% in this country at the moment. You know, will that be capped? Will it go up a little bit? Because if it goes up, then you will see a massive decline in luxury goods. We are a luxury good. You know, all the hobbies that we're engaging with are all luxury goods, obviously. So that might be hit because of that. I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure Catalyst have looked into this and are thinking about it, but, you know, I think it's just that's the only uncertainty that I can put into that. The only asterisk that I can say where this video might end up being wrong because, you know, there could be like wider like impacts on what Catalyst are doing and what is happening across the BattleTech IP that we don't know about yet, because the world just seems to be in a big flux point at the moment. But I think when I look at like how Games Workshop are acting and how, you know, like they're trying to pass their prices on, I can't see Catalyst doing that. I think Catalyst like pride themselves on not doing that, like being an affordable hobby. I think that's a smart move as well, and I'm not saying this out of some like naive sentiment or because I want cheap products. In fact, I quite, you know, like happily say I think the Catalyst products are too cheap. I think they should be a little bit more expensive. Everyone's going to disagree with me on that, and that's fine, but I just mean that from the point of view that it's a very, very solid product, and I would quite happily pay more for it as a luxury product, and because like the quality is so high, and I know how like much effort they put into this, so I don't mind paying like $9-10 for a mech. You certainly do that with like the Iron Wind or the Relpatha models. They'll usually cost between $8 and $10 approximately. The plastic ones are cheaper than that, to which your point would be, well, yeah, plastic's cheaper than metal. Yep, fine, that's true. But I never look at it like I'm buying the actual physical product. It's the IP that I'm purchasing. It's all the time that's gone into designing those models and all that good stuff. So for me, I think Catalyst, you know, their mindset as is will probably benefit them, as opposed to being like a greedy big corporate like me, who would be jacking the prices up. I think from Catalyst standpoint, that's not really in their nature. So that might really assist them over the next like 12-18 months if we hit this recession, whereby you see the prices staying like pretty static across the Catalyst Force pack. So, you know, if you can get like an Innosphere Force pack for about approximately, you know, if you're getting it at one of the discounty independent stores, it might be £20. If you that's £5 for a mech. If you put that alongside like your average, you know, common garden variety 40k pack, you'll probably pay an extra, well, several pounds more for the 40k models. And I think the differences as well, obviously with 40ks, it's a game set specifically like kept in flux. So they're constantly changing the rules and releasing new things. And I think that really kind of takes a lot out of the consumer. And that's something BattleTech doesn't have. Like, you can just go and buy Force packs, say if you're playing like 3025 era, all those mechs are still completely viable if you play into the Ilkhan era. You know, so like 100+ years after the start of BattleTech, you can still use those mechs. The rules are still the same from like the 80s, like literally at 95% the same as they were in the 80s. So it's like you'd get it, and then you don't feel like within a year, oh, it's obsolete now, and I'm going to have to go and buy other things to kind of offset this and create another army and that kind of thing. So I think BattleTech as a recession game is quite foolproof. Like, it's, you know, it's cheaper, and it's not got that like I don't know what you'd call it, like the instability and the flux that a game like 40k has, where it's just constantly being like added to and expanded upon, and, you know, new releases, new versions, new armies, things like that. So I think all these things coupled together just mean that BattleTech's in such a good place at the moment. I'm actually like, I've been excited by BattleTech. I mean, I wouldn't be doing videos like this if I wasn't. But I've been excited about it for like at least 2.5 years now. I've just thought, oh my god, it's back, and it's going to be like really, really successful. But that tangent has never dropped off. There's never been a moment where I've thought, oh, you know, this is the moment where it all kind of falls off a cliff. It's just like, you know, upward spiral tangent good stuff all the time, just in terms of everything that's coming out, the way that they've, like, you know, structured these you know, these Kickstarters and how that's all like panned out. The fact that they're adding into this, like, into the new like eras, like into the Ilkan era. You know, there's a lot of books coming out. It just seems to me like, I think we're going into that like spearhead of a moment. I think with BattleTech, I don't, something just feels so right about it at the moment. And I've thought this for a long time, but I don't know. I can't explain it. I've just got such a good feeling, like my spider senses are tingling, that the next 6 months is going to be absolutely massive, and I'm so interested to see where it goes. You know, I mean, I don't have any intel on kind of the IP and how all the franchising works, but I'm going to be very interested to see, you know, are Catalyst going to do a renewal of the franchise? I'm sure they absolutely want to, but there's going to be lots of, I think, discussions had at like the corporate level because of how successful I think BattleTech is getting. Like, is it now, you know, Catalyst are probably going to have to expand, I'd imagine. I'm not saying they don't have to become like Games Workshop big or anything like that, but when you've got demand that is that high, and you know, like your competition firms might end up, you know, you might start stealing a percentage of their market, which for the first time for, well, ever really, I've thought this is actually now true. If you go back to my videos like last year, I was pretty adamant. I used to say on those things like, I absolutely don't believe that all this kind of buzz around BattleTech means, you know, and BattleTech fans saying, oh, this is, you know, BattleTech stealing all the 40k players. I never believed that. I always thought there was a lot of hyperbole in that, because 40k players are as dedicated as BattleTech players, so it's not simply a matter of that people were just turning away from it. I'm sure some did, but it wasn't like as big as I think the BattleTech community thought it was. It's just the BattleTech community is very passionate and very vocal, so it just was talked about a lot and you saw a lot of buzz about it. But now, I think I'd probably not reverse my decision, but I am a little bit more... Optimistic's the wrong word, because I like having the Games Workshop hobby. I'm a big Blood Bowl player. I don't want to see anything bad happen to Games Workshop. You know, I know they get a lot of negativity, but they're such a big company that's inevitable. But for me, I love their products. The models are absolutely beautiful. But so I'm not saying it's a matter of stealing them, but I think that the retail option now for those independent stores might start to gravitate towards other IPs because of what Games Workshop have just done. And that's where I think like BattleTech can start to, because they don't have their own stores, obviously. You know, there are no BattleTech stores on the, you know, that just sell exclusive BattleTech products like Games Workshop do with, you know, the Warhammer stores. So we are reliant in the BattleTech community on those independent stores, especially in the international community, because the shipping costs from the US is so horrific for us. So, you know, we are genuinely, you know, we need our independent stores to stock BattleTech, which they do. So, you know, it's just going to be very, very interesting now, I think, to see what direction they take it in, and are we going to see an increase in that product? Are some of these retailers going to sign up to the Kickstarter on those retail deals? All this is like super interesting, and I just can't wait to see where it goes now, because like I said, I think if 20, you know, I just kind of look at it like, you know, what 2020, 2019 was like the launch pad for like the new BattleTech, just in terms of what Catalyst are doing. But this next year now, 2023, I think is going to be the, you know, the big like acid test. And if we get through that and it's successful, I think we're in a whole new like stratosphere in terms of like where BattleTech can go now, because obviously the wider hobby is like very, very popular at the moment. I think there's a lot of like new people coming into it. It's still, you know, it's still quite an exclusive hobby because it's relatively expensive. You know, again, not as expensive as some hobbies, but it's, you know, if you really want to get into it, you kind of assume you're going to be going into it for like thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars. But I think that that's another thing where BattleTech really, really excels, because it just prides itself on being for want of a better term, a beer and pretzels game. You don't need like, a workshop to create the terrain. You can, if you want, just do it on a hex map. You can just use bottle tops, on a hex map, because there's no like dimensionality to it. It's just a hex map that you move things around and judge like the 3 dimensions from that hex grid. So it's cheap, it's easy, it's actually as well. I think, again, I've said this multiple times, I think the BattleTech as a gaming system, if obviously we're getting Alpha Strike like very, very soon. If not, I think actually Catalyst, I think they've just started to sell it on their website as this is kind of going up. I saw it literally before I turned the camera on tonight. So Alpha Strike's that gaming set, which is like really easy to get into, and then you've got Classic, which is a bit more detailed, but even Classic is not a difficult game. It's got a, if you're just playing like core, like Lance on Lance, it's simple. It's way more simple than like any iteration of like 40k that I've seen, because there are just, there are just less rules involved in it, and it's much more structured. And it's not like, I think the 40k players complain about what I think they call them stratagems, where it's just like lots of rules on top of rules. You don't get anything like that in BattleTech. There are no reroll systems. It's just quite, once you get your head around like placements of shots and, like the ranges on the weapons and how the armor works, it's really simple. So I think, you can introduce anyone to it and they pick it up very quickly. And Alpha Strike is obviously that times 10 because it's so easy to pick up. It's such an easy game, is Alpha Strike. So, yep, I'm going to say it. I think 2023 is the year of BattleTech. I think it's coming. And I can't wait for it. I'm so excited about this like next Kickstarter as well. I think it's going to be, it's the one that I'm looking forward to, just because it's mercenary focused, and I'm an absolute sucker for mercenaries in BattleTech. I think they are the core, like, beating heart of BattleTech. I don't really care about any of the Innisphere powers or the clans. It's mercenaries for me all the way. They're the most interesting part of it, the most like diverse and like the most fascinating. They've got the most colour in terms of like the wider narrative. So it's just amazing, really. What a time! I can't believe it. When I kind of look back, and I think I said this like one of my first videos. Like, if you'd have asked me like 5 years ago about BattleTech, I'd be like, oh, I used to love BattleTech, but it's dead. And look at this now. We've just got so much. It's all retail. Again, it's flying off the shelves, but I saw one of the hobby stores that I use in the UK just got another like big shipment of it in, and it's like, you can just get those like level 2 like Comstar packs now. There's like 20 of them on the shelves there, and I'm so delighted that is the case and that people are buying it and that it's got so much buzz around it. And it's to stop in a minute, I'm getting quite emotional, but I genuinely am. Like, I still can't believe that I've got BattleTech back. It's glorious, really. And I think we're going to have such a I think next year especially, I think it's going to be so telling. I'm doing my best to actually try to sort out getting to Adepticon in March. It's in Chicago, I think. I've never been to one of the big like US like gaming like conferences, but I would love to go, and just because of the way that BattleTech is set up, in that it's where they are announcing it, I'd love to be able to get there. Next year though, I've sold this house now 3 times. 2 of the deals have fallen through, but I sold it this week, and I'm pretty confident about this one. So all being well, I will have moved with a job like early next year, and that obviously could cause like a lot of like complication if I want to do a trip to Chicago, because that's going to be probably like a 10-day affair or something like that, and I've no idea what I'm going to be doing in terms of living arrangements or where, even what city I'm going to be in at this point, because it's still all a little bit in flux. But this place is sold, so that's the important thing. I can go and do what I want after I get rid of this place, so that's fine. But yeah, that could be a fun thing. I would love to go to Adepticon and then like document it. That would be super fun. But again, might be a little bit too early for me next year. Final point, and then I'll wrap up. I've talked a little bit recently about some personal exciting news for me within like the BattleTech sphere. That will all go live next week, and then I'll talk about it probably on next week or the week after's show, because I'm kind of, at the moment, I'm keeping it under wraps because it's through a, you know, let's just say another entity, and I don't want to kind of, you know, take away any of their thunder. So that's good. That's been great, actually. I've really enjoyed doing that little secret project over the last 6 weeks. So yeah, I'm not going to say any more. Anyway, you'll have to wait and see. But I will, when it's live, I will announce it, and something that I'm looking forward to doing as well over the next few months. I think it could be quite expansive and interesting. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. So nice positive video today. Don't particularly like negativity. So all good on the BattleTech, or the good ship BattleTech. So I'll leave that here, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.